Have you gone through a bankruptcy and you're really starting to feel the weight of that stigma? In this video, I'm going to talk about what bankruptcy really means for your life, both the downsides as well as one surprising benefit, and the concrete steps you can take to start rebuilding with confidence. Stick around to the end and you'll walk away with a clear path to move forward without shame and with a plan that actually works. Hi, welcome to Refactor Your Money. I'm Max, an accredited financial counselor, here to help you break free from financial stress and start living a life of purpose. Now, if you've been following along with my videos, you'll know that a few videos back, I covered the topic of bankruptcy as an introduction. I talked about what bankruptcy is, when it might be right for you, and how to go about kicking off the process. Now, this video is going to be a follow-up video to that one. So if you're interested in learning the basics, check out this video up above that I filmed a couple weeks ago. And that should give you all you need to know just to get the basic foundation straight. In this video, I'm going to talk about the three primary consequences of filing for bankruptcy, what you can expect coming out the other side, as well as one extra bonus benefit that I find is really interesting and fascinating for people, as well as the three steps you can take to make sure that coming out of that bankruptcy, you're setting yourself up for success and recovering with confidence. Now, the first and probably most obvious and widely known adverse impact of a bankruptcy is that it's going to affect your credit. So the three credit agencies are going to list a bankruptcy on their reports for 10 years. So for about a decade period coming out of a bankruptcy, there are going to be adverse consequences of difficulty getting favorable loan terms. You may have a hard time renting an apartment if there are landlords that are going to run background checks and pull credit, as well as potentially even, unfortunately, getting a job, right? If there's an employer that's going to run a background check that includes a credit report. So this is probably the most widely known and widely understood downside of a bankruptcy, is that it kind of puts a 10-year red flag on you when it comes to future debt. Now, it's not always as bad as you might think it is. Some creditors actually do look at bankruptcies in a favorable light. They might see going through a Chapter 7, for example, where all of your previous debts were discharged as a potential good thing, because now your debt ratio is going to be really low, right? You have almost no debt left. You've probably discharged most, if not all of it, and they could see that as a positive thing. Now, you want to be careful there, of course. You want to make sure before you take on any more debt that you've learned from your mistakes of the past, you fully understand how debt works, and you know how to manage it. Now, so you have to be careful in those waters. The other thing that potentially mitigates the downside here is that there's a really good chance, if you're going through a bankruptcy, that your credit score was already pretty low. So when it comes to getting new loan terms or getting an apartment or a job, there's a decent chance that because your credit score was already really low, going through a bankruptcy isn't really going to make it that much lower. Now, it probably will to some degree, but there's a good chance that if you're in a position where you have to go through a bankruptcy, your credit score is already quite low. It's already been impacted by your debt load. So it may not be as bad as you think. And often when you're coming out of a bankruptcy, you're going to be focusing on the basics anyway. You're going to be focusing on positive cash flow, paying for things outright. You're not going to be using much debt anyway during your recovery. So a credit score is actually less important than you might think as you come out and start to recover from that bankruptcy. Now, the second adverse impact of a bankruptcy is that there are legal waiting periods between bankruptcies, right? Now, I'm going to run through these one by one based on the type of bankruptcy. But if you've gone through a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you have to wait 8 years before filing for another Chapter 7 bankruptcy and 4 years before filing for a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, right? So you have to wait a period of time from that Chapter 7 before you declare another bankruptcy. Now, for Chapter 13, the numbers are a little different, although there are still waiting periods. For Chapter 13, if you're going to go from 13 to another 13, that's a 2-year waiting period. If you filed and went through a Chapter 13 and you now need to do a Chapter 7, that's a 6-year waiting period, right? So that's something to be aware of as you go through a bankruptcy. Based on the type of bankruptcy you have gone through, there's going to be that set of waiting periods that you're going to have to wait out before you can file another one. So you really have to, so this is really important to know what the duration is that you're going to have to be totally on your game. And honestly, really, in a perfect world, you're on your game the rest of your life, right? Theoretically, a bankruptcy should be a one-time deal. It's a last resort. It's a fresh start. So you don't really want to have to go through another one. But it's good to know these numbers anyway, because once you do go through a bankruptcy, the clock starts ticking on how long you have to go before you can declare another one. So that's number 2. And then finally, number 3 is just the general stigma in our society and our culture around bankruptcy, right? It can often be seen as a scarlet letter. There's a lot of shame, a lot of humiliation, tied up in that in our culture and in our society, right? And it's unfortunate because, while bankruptcy is a last resort and often is a sign of previous financial mistakes, we really are not taught financial literacy, right? It's sorely inadequate in our society, especially from a young age. It's rarely taught. And in a lot of ways, our economy is set up to be predatory in a lot of ways, right? So there's a lot of sort of loan products out there that are widely available. We know from back in 2008 that there was a lot of subprime lending happening, right? So there are elements and nuances in our economy and the way our society works that really are not set up to benefit those who are not well versed in financial literacy, right? So there is a stigma around it, and it's unfortunate that it's there. But it's important to remember that a lot of us are set up for failure from the start. We are not taught this stuff, and we're sort of in a system that isn't really helping us out, right? So that is an unfortunate stigma you do have to live with. Now that brings me to the sort of the bonus under the radar benefit of a bankruptcy, which is that it really does represent an opportunity for a fresh start, right? It's an opportunity to wipe the slate clean, re-examine all your habits, re-examine all the mistakes you've made in the past, learn from those, and start fresh, right? This is now your chance to start living your life in a way where your money is being put to work for your benefit. It starts to serve you rather than you serving it. And it's really just a fresh opportunity to it's a reset point, right? You can hit the reset button, start over, and start moving forward with an actionable plan. Now, before I get into the 3 steps you can take to make sure that you're coming out of this, right? Taking the actionable steps to come out of the bankruptcy set up for success, I just want to pause for a minute and say if you're getting any value out of this video, I would really appreciate it if you would please like and subscribe to it. This is a small channel. I'm trying to get it off the ground. The whole purpose is to help you financially. And I would really love it if you would subscribe and like. That really helps me get the channel going and really helps me be able to continue to produce hopefully quality and useful content for you. So now let's get into the 3 steps you can take to ensure that coming out of a bankruptcy, you are setting yourself up for success. Step 1 is if you weren't already, you got to start tracking your spending, right? Now I have an entire video dedicated all to tracking your spending. I'll put it up above here. But this really is step 1. This is the thing that once you do it, it unlocks all the other elements of personal financial management. So you really got to lock in your spending tracking. In the video I just referenced, I talk about different ways to do it. It's totally up to you. There's 4 ways that I run through in that video that could be possible fits for you. So watch that video, pick one that works for you, and then get after it. Then from there, once you've finished tracking your spending, now you can start doing things like creating a cash flow statement. I have another video all about that. I'll put that up above as well. That's the golden rule of personal finance, right? Is to spend less than you earn. You cannot spend less than you earn unless you have a budget and a cash flow statement, and you know exactly what you have going out and coming in, right? So until you've tracked your spending, you have a plan in the form of a budget, and you're tracking your historic spending in the form of a cash flow statement, you really have no way of ensuring that you're adhering to that golden rule. And that's the golden rule that allows you to dig yourself out of any unfortunate financial situation. It's what allows you to build an emergency fund. It's what allows you to pay off debt. It's what allows you to start investing. That is the thing that, if nothing else, you always make sure you're doing, spending less than you earn. And if you ever have a question about what to do once you have positive cash flow, I've got yet another video that I made all about 3 different types of financial orders of operation that can guide you through step by step what to do with your next dollar as you hit certain milestones along the way. So check that video out, pick one that's a good fit for you, and again, you'll be off and running. Step 2 is to establish credit-worthy habits. Now, if you've ever worked on improving your credit score, these habits are going to be very similar to that, right? And I'll do a whole video all about credit scores, how to improve a credit score, etc. But there's going to be a lot of parallels here in this step to that, right? And it's going to be pay your bills on time. That's step 1. Always pay your bills on time. It's going to be know your financial ratios and work to be improving them. And again, I have a video all about financial ratios. Again, I'll link it up above. Check that out. Learn about the ratios. Learn how to start tracking them. That's a key and critical piece to make sure that you are moving in the right direction with your finances. So know your ratios and work to improve them. And then lastly, and this is probably a little bit obvious, but use credit very sparingly, right? As I mentioned, our system is set up to get people into trouble, especially if you don't know what you're doing. And there are going to be some creditors that might view a bankruptcy as a positive, and they might be reaching out to you now that you have a low debt to income ratio, right? So you're going to be wanting to be aware of that. You want to be very picky and choosy about what debts you do take on and what credit you do use, right? So those are the 3 steps to make sure you are continuing to enhance your creditworthiness, follow those habits and make sure you're sticking to that plan. The third and final step is to work on your money mindset. Now that includes working on overcoming the stigma of bankruptcy, right? So I mentioned earlier in the video that our culture carries kind of this shroud of shame and humiliation around bankruptcy. It's important to try to work through that. So you got to work through that first, right? And you could remember that over 500,000 people, and I mentioned this in my last video, over 500,000 people in 2024, last year, as of the recording of this video, filed for bankruptcy in the United States. So if you did go through a bankruptcy, you are by far not alone, nowhere near alone. There are other people working through this with you. And it's important to remember that bankruptcy is a fresh start, as I mentioned before. It's an opportunity to learn from mistakes, start moving forward, and start taking new actions and redefining your life going forward. As a part of that, what you're going to want to do also is investigate some of your previous money habits, right? I talk about learning from mistakes. What sort of habits did you have before? What sort of relationship did you have with your money before? What sort of relationships with money were you taught growing up, right? This is sort of the hard, deep psychological habit building work that is really common, especially in financial coaching. A lot of my clients and I work through this kind of thing. So this is the kind of work you have to do to really start changing your mindset, your habits, your relationship with money, while you're also trying to dial in a lot of the technical system-based, right? Cash flow, spend less than you earn, work on following an order of operations, knowing your ratios, all that kind of stuff. So it's really examining your habits, your behaviors, your relationship with money. If you lock that in, you're really, really, really set up for success, especially if you've got those creditworthy habits nailed down and you're working on establishing positive cash flow. Now, if you're one of the 500,000 people who is coming out of a bankruptcy and you're working to rebuild your life and you would just want a little bit of extra help, I do financial coaching. I'm an accredited financial counselor. I have an entire practice dedicated to helping people with their money, and I would love to help you. So if you're interested in talking to me, we can go through your specific situation. There's a link down below in the description where you can schedule some time on my calendar for a one-on-one focused coaching session where we can talk through what you got going on, come up with an action plan, and start moving you forward with a little bit of extra guidance from me. Additionally, I have a couple other resources that might be useful for you. I have a 30-day money refactor guide, which helps you sort of get clarity around what matters to you in your life, what brings you meaning, what brings you purpose, what makes you happy, and helps you walk through the way you're spending your money now so you can get some alignment on that and really get a clear picture of where you want to take your finances going forward. So that's, again, a free guide for you down below. Click the link and I will send it your way. And then lastly is a personal financial tracking template. I talked about that one in my previous videos about cash flow statements, net worth, and financial ratios. I used that myself during my own financial turnaround a number of years ago. I offered up to my clients as well. I worked through it with them, and I like to make it available to you as well. So that's also down below, a link in the description that you can click that link, and I will give you access to that Google template to use for yourself. So I hope all that is helpful. I hope you're coming out of this video feeling a little bit better about what bankruptcy means for you in terms of how it's going to affect your life. And you've got some clear and actionable steps you can take to start moving yourself forward and recovering from a bankruptcy so you can start harnessing your money to work for you rather than against you. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video, and I will see you there. Thanks.